Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Here today. I have been slacking on the posting, but I want to post more. And today I want to talk about the difference between TPM, PM, and SWE, and why I chose to become a TPM instead of a PM or a SWE as a full-time postgrad. So a little bit about me. So my name is Macy. I'm currently working as a technical program manager, full-time based out in New York at Microsoft. Back then, when I was still a student, I had a few software engineering internships. I had a few project management internships. But postgrad, I decided to go with technical program manager as a full-time opportunity for me to start my career as a TPM. So that's a little bit about me and my background. And so I have dabbled a little bit here and there within like the PM, TPM, and SWE kind of position, and end up choosing TPM. And I'll talk about what is the definition of those three, how do they kind of intersect each other, the pros and cons of a TPM and all those positions, and why I ended up deciding to become a TPM at the end as well. And I hope that through this video, it can help you to decide whether or not you want to become a SWE, an engineer, or just a PM or a TPM. So let's just get started. So I want to start by defining definitions of the three positions. So I'll start with SWE because that's like the most, I guess, different than PM and TPM. So software engineering is basically an engineering approach to software development. A practitioner, a software engineer, applies the engineering design process to develop in software. And the term programmer and coder usually overlap between software engineer, but they only apply construction aspects of typical software engineering workload. But that's basically what it is. Like a lot of people who end up being a software engineer usually major in computer science, or even some school have more specific major of like software engineer or software development. I think those terms, people use it interchangeably. Basically, software engineer is the same as software development. If you disagree, feel free to comment down below, but I don't really know the difference between those, so usually I use them interchangeably. And second, I want to talk about the definition of product management. So a product manager is a professional role that is responsible for the development of products for an organization, known as the practice of product management. Usually, product managers own the product strategy behind the product, specify its functional requirements, and also manage feature release. And last but not least, the definition of technical program manager is basically technical program managers are in charge of handling all aspects of one to many technical projects for the organization. TPM usually work for a full life cycle of a project, from idea generation through deployment and optimizing the full release value stream. So that's all the definition of like the three positions. So it kind of gives you a little bit insights on what TPM does and what PM does and what SWE does. And I want to start with just talking about the pros and cons of a SWE. So for some pros and cons for SWE, so for the pros of SWE, you usually enjoy excellent pay, and the average of a software engineer who work in the United States are around $114K per year. So that's pretty good pay, And as you climb up the stairs, climb up the ladder of the organization, you will have more and more. The more higher level your IC is, the higher pay you are. Second is that it is very high demand, so there's always looking for software engineer. Even though like the market might be a little rough right now, they're still looking for software engineer to help them develop products and develop features in general. They actually predict to have a 22% of increase in job opportunities throughout the years up to 2030. And the third pros are that you can work remotely. A lot of the time, software engineer doesn't really do a lot of meetings, and they only provide more value when they're not in meetings, because then they'll have the time to do codings and stuff like that. However, the cons of being a SWE is sometimes you have a very long working hour. A lot of the time, SWE needs to be on call for a certain period of time, so that, if the customer have bugs and have support tickets that need to be fixed immediately, then you have to be on call during that time frame. Second is that it involves with high demand. It comes with high competition, so it's also kind of hard to break into, unless I know a lot of people usually just do a lot of lead coding and a lot of projects to kind of try to break into it, and most of them usually do break into it, whether it is a small company or a big company. Third is that there's definitely a very strict project deadlines, and you usually work in a very high paced or fast paced work environment, just because features need to be done, and a lot of times engineer has a deadline of when the ticket has to be done, and so that might lead to high stress. So it really depends on how the person like to work or how they usually work in their own time. And then moving on to PM, some of the pros and cons. So pros for PMs are definitely PMs require a lot of creativity to think about like problem solutions, problem statement, value statement, how the product or feature would help the company or user. A lot of companies have the value of customer obsessed, especially for Microsoft. We are very customer obsessed, so we all the time we want to think about things from a customer perspective, and so that includes a lot of creativity and also kind of questions to ask for our customer when we're doing user interviews or even user surveys. Second is that we needed to understand complex problems of our customer to see what our customer pain points is and our customer struggles, so that we can be user obsessed and we can build the best product for our users. And some of the cons for being a PM is that you have to a lot of times overcome budget issue or limitation of a product. A lot of times you don't want to go over a product, and there is a scope between the product scope and how you want the project to be scoped within. Second is that PM requires tremendous soft skills, especially for communications and even like leadership style. A lot of times you're leading a project forward, and that kind of includes, you have to have a certain level of leadership to push people to do work, or even just following up on timelines and deadlines and work items and things like that in general. And another thing that also comes with it is that sometimes they have expectations of product manager has to be very technical, even though it's not required to be technical. Companies have expectations of product manager being, have to be technical. They sometimes overseeing the big picture of what the product actually is, which is, product managers, they want it to be more user focused instead of more technical focused, and sometimes it loses the big pictures of what the customer actually needs. And last but not least, I want to talk about the pros and cons for a TPM. So some of the pros for TPMs are definitely have a high earning potentials because of your specific skills of you being technical, and you also have the skills of being as a program manager. Usually they earn a more competitive salary because of your specific technical skills and your leadership skills that comes with it. Second is that you're definitely working in a more dynamic work environment because you're technical. A lot of times you're also talking with engineers, and also a lot of times you're talking to designers, sometimes finance team as well. And last but not least, one of the last pros are you're going to have a lot of cross collaboration functional communications because you are more technical in a sense comparing to like product managers. You talk to engineering's a little bit more in depth on talking about the architecture solutions and how they can build it on the software engineering side of things, while like a product manager might not equip any kind of engineering knowledge in that sense. And some of the cons for a TPM is that usually you work in a high pressure environment because you're probably going to have strict deadlines as well, because you're talking to engineering partners. Their tickets have a strict deadline, and eventually you're going to have a strict deadline to impose on them, being like, this work item has a very strict deadline and you have to do it within this work items. Not only are you talking to engineer, you're also working as kind of like a mini program manager yourself, writing one-pager specs, writing engineering specs, and also any other like documentation that comes with it. And the other cons are communication challenges. A lot of times you're also talking to other stakeholders about if they want to learn more about like the technical stuff. You also have to kind of explain to them because they might not be a technical person. And so this requires a very high level of communication skills and also technical skills to kind of understand what your engineering are saying, and also kind of divert it and translate it into modern languages that a non-technical person would also understand. So those are all the pros and cons for all the three positions that I've talked about. And now I want to go into why I decided to become a TPM and not a PM or a SWE. So I know I don't want to be a SWE after my sophomore year. So after my sophomore year, I already know that I don't want to be a SWE because I had 2 SWE internships at that point, and I really didn't like to just do SWE 24/7 looking at coding. I've heard, a lot of times you are only spending 30% of your time actually doing like new code, and 70% of the time just debugging. And I already know that it's not for me. So I end up just pivoting into applying for a product manager or even TPM because I am a more technical person and I do have a computer science degree that I'm studying back then in college. I decided to go with more technical role because I feel like it has a higher growing opportunity for me. I also don't want to have my CS degree goes to waste, so that's why I decided to go for a technical role. A product manager role are more focused on customers and user focus, and so a lot of people who might be majoring in business administrative or even psychology will also go into product management and a TPM or a more niche role where they want someone with a technical background who also want to be like some kind of program manager to be in that position. And so that's why I decided to become a TPM instead of a PM. I was actually thinking of transitioning back to a PM position, but then I talked to my mentor, and my mentor really strongly suggested me to stay within my TPM area because of my career growth opportunities. And in general, it's just like you don't want to forget your technical skills. And so I might just stay in TPM for a few more years and see where it's gonna go for me if I want to stay as a TPM or a PM. That's mainly my reason for choosing TPM over a PM position. But other people have other reasons that they might choose one over the other, but that's just a little story of mine. But yeah, so that's all that I want to talk about today. I hope all the information that I'm giving you out there helps. I know that I dumped a lot of information, the pros and cons and just everything else. But yeah, I hope that this video helps to decide whether or not you want to become a TPM, a PM, or a SWE. So that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you enjoy it, please subscribe and click the like button and then maybe the bell button if you want a notification whenever I post. I don't know when I'll be posting, but that's a wrap for today's video, and I'll see you guys next time I post. Bye!